Hey guys, welcome back to the Passes. Once again, this is your host and gamer, and today's video gonna be doing my movie review revisited. Right, this series I'm going to be revisiting a film that came out in a while ago, like years ago. That's gonna be me looking back at it from a different perspective. Right, and today's video gonna be talking about Batman versus Superman. Alright, now this one gonna be a bit of a mismatch. First off, like Batman vs Superman was a very big film that came out back in 2016. Right, it was possibly the biggest film that was to come out then, and then ended up being one of the most biggest disappointments in some aspect, depending on where you stand with the film. It's pretty funny though, because a lot of it is the way how they market the film. It's like one of those films where it's expectations versus reality. You coming out of Man of Steel, which was already a bit of a polarizing in itself, and then you go into this with a new Batman, and there's pictures with the Wonder Woman in the movie, and then there's pictures of Aquaman holding a trident and whatnot, and then there's who talks about Flash being in the movie and all this other stuff. It's basically like Justice League in like the alphabet or something. You can say it like that. But I think that was probably where the film probably had a lot of like problems, because most people they came to see this film because for Batman and Superman, basically just those two, right? Because that was the whole gimmick of it. The two most iconic superheroes going to be on the big screen together for the first time, and while the current Superman wasn't as favored as Christopher Reeve, the majority of people still liked him as the character, and based on what you were seeing, Ben Affleck was proving people wrong as the Batman. He did prove me wrong. With those chills, he looked damn good. And watching the movie, I remember when I went to watch the movie, it had a bit of a different reaction, because I remember seeing that Man of Steel was really good. Actually, I really enjoyed that film. I do think that film was underrated by a lot. I don't know exactly why or what was that people got so wrong watching the movie, but to me this felt very underrated, and it really holds up well today. But with Batman and Superman, well, the film is more recent, so it's not like I can really call it to that standard. But this film feels more like a sort of like a love-hate relationship with this film, compared to Man of Steel, because of the whole aspects and multitude of stuff this film had to juggle. Batman fighting Superman, and then setting up Justice League, and all this other stuff. First of all, I will admit though the film is not as bad as the critics were saying when I saw it in theaters. I will say though I did have a lot of problems with the way how the film was structured. Some of the scenes did not make sense in correlation to the whole plot, particularly like the beginning. After they started showing you the Metropolis scene from Man of Steel, they show it in the perspective of Batman losing his stuff, and first of all, I admit that was an excellent way to introduce him. You see him with the Wayne Tower collapsed and Superman in the sky, and he's just down there in the rubble just watching all of the destruction. That was actually a pretty interesting thing to for him to do. Outside of that, there were scenes where Superman was flew to the African desert. We had to go and confront the terrorists who kidnapped Lois Lane and her crew. The guys who were spying on them for like some interview about who they are and such. The funny aspect about it is that the first time I saw it, I thought it felt like out of place, but in the sense of when you went to watch your Ultimate Edition, which is where the real story in the film lies, it made more sense. That was a more integral part of the story. There was many other stuff too that the Ultimate Edition showed that was became more integral part of the story. These minor little details that was fleshing out the movie more. And I think that was like partially one of their biggest flaws when you structure a film and you cut it into a 3 hour runtime, which is not that often for a film on this scale, and then you trim it down to a 2.5 hour runtime to play into more showtimes, which is a big of an issue. Looking back, it's a little more understandable now. They know they were probably thinking, it's DC Comics, and at the most part, the people will get it. Except if you watch Superman, and then you watch Batman, and you watch Man of Steel, and how people reacted to it, it's quite obvious most of the people that watch the films don't get the films anymore. And that's partially at play here, aside from that runtime. That people don't seem to get what these films are. They're so obsessed with what the competition Marvel is doing, being this big spectacle, fun and entertaining, and real, well, character driven to extent, but more in the fun, entertaining aspects. And when you watch Man of Steel and BVS, there is some of that, and there's maybe a little bit of humor here and there, but it's not more in playing on those lines. It plays more on a philosophical, thought-provoking sort of aspect into films. And one thing I realized is that when you get into that aspect, people tend to get more critical because they have to start thinking and start being more open and analyzing it. What is this really setting up here? Or why is this happening? Rather than if it's entertaining or not. If it's entertaining, they would bat no eye. But since it wasn't like all fun and humorous and the entertaining aspect, they were just sitting there and thinking, why did he do that? Because there are plenty instances when you watch other movies and as entertaining as they are, you probably sit there and thinking, why did he actually do that though? But yet no one else really asks that same question. And that's one thing I noticed here at BVS is that it got a lot more flack for stuff that other films usually get a pass for. When they talk about certain aspects, like there's a certain example in the movie, there are scenes where Batman was chasing down some of the criminals in his Batmobile, that crazy shot where he's chasing down the trucks and the stuff is exploding and whatnot, and people were like, why is he killing them? And I was sitting and thinking, oh, why is that big deal that he is killing them? I mean, after all, they are criminals in a sense, and it's really funny because they always make them as some as an excuse as Batman never kills, and that's just one comic or whatever. Because when I hear those things, I was thinking to myself, like, people really gonna use this as an excuse, like, he's not supposed to kill. Well, okay, but they hold that same position when in Age of Ultron, when those guys were storming the Russian base that was in the forest area, and they're literally killing people. I mean, seriously, the way how those guys were beating up those people in those tanks and those military weapons and stuff. But I mean, there's a scene in Avengers where Captain, like, he literally throws his bike, like he turns on, he throws it at, I think, at a tank or something that blows up, and you can't sit there and tell me that no one died from that. People have no problem with that because I remember when people was complaining about Age of Ultron or for other reasons, but none of them complained about the killing in that movie yet. People are so obsessed with seeing this version of Batman killing. And now listen to the criticism. It brings me to our next problem this film has, and that is these characters being more comic driven rather than old school. Because there's this bit where Snyder had an interview, And he was saying that if you're a fan of the canon comics, you'd understand that he didn't change the characters. But if you're a fan of the old movies, then yeah, he changed them a bit. And that's a lot of that is in play in Battle of Superman because people that they watch Christopher Reeve, they watch Brandon Wood Superman Returns, and they like that. They watch the Dark Knight trilogy, which everyone likes, and I get that too. I like the Dark Knight trilogy, but they watch and how they sort of sense on these ideals of the character that they hold to that as a some standard. When you see the characters, like they're being more comic accurate, they tend to push away that because the standard of the character that they hold to, they adhere to, is for them is the actual legit version of the character. You know, even though like I will admit that those movies, the older movies were good. There are times when you have to look past that and the film that you're watching, you have to look at and decide whether or not if this holds as its own movie, right? Because that's ultimately what Batman vs Superman is, and the Man of Steel. They're their own new incarnation of the character for the current audience. While it's a hard pill to swallow, it's something that you just have to get used to. When Spider-Man came out with Tobey Maguire, it was very good, and the trilogy ended sort of sour because of what they did with Spider-Man 3. They ended up rebooting it shortly after with Amazing Spider-Man, and we all saw how that went out. A lot of people, they were quick to compare it to Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I'll admit it's not the same. Amazing Spider-Man has a different story from the regular Spider-Man, and while there are certain stuff that doesn't work in Amazing Spider-Man, I will admit that they did made a great movie with that, and I don't expect to like straight up compare it to Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And the same thing I'll do here with Christian Bale Batman and Michael Keaton Batman. They're different and they're made of different people, so of course they'll be different. So the fact that you could just say, oh, this one's better than this version, well, maybe in some aspects, but not overall. So that's the thing, and the same thing applies to Batman vs Superman. I think that there are some stuff that I like about that it does with the characters over the older version of the characters, but it doesn't just necessarily mean I'll say I prefer this over the older versions. Even though looking back at the film, it feels a lot more. It makes more sense now looking back at the two. I mean, because I remember one of the biggest complaints people have in Batman vs Superman, or in the fact that the film felt sort of like slow paced and such, is the fight with the big brawl with Batman vs Superman itself and how it ended. The whole matter stuff, that's like a big crazy meme laughing stuff. It's really funny because Civil War did something similar to that, in the sense where after the epic airport fight, which I really like in Civil War, and they get down to the part where they come down to this bunker, and Iron Man basically, like, he makes up with the whole beef with Cap for a time. He's like, okay, you know what, I'm not here for you, let's just get this thing done here, let's figure what's going on. Right? Because he did some research and he figured out that Cap wasn't totally BS with what he was saying. And when you get to that point in the film, Baron Zemo, he's like, oh, it's not over, because they came for him and they get him, but he shows them a clip of basically Iron Man, well, his parents actually gets killed by the Winter Soldier. Yeah, pretty funny in a way too, because whose parents died in Batman vs Superman in a flashback scene that was shown more than once? Yes, that's right, Thomas Wayne parents. Thomas Wayne or Bruce Wayne. That's right, Bruce Wayne's parents. And here in Civil War, they showed you that. It's funny too because they start off with that same thing and they cut back to that scene later on in the movie showing you his parents' death. The only difference is that Batman's parents died at the hand of a criminal that got away somewhere. And Civil War, you had Bucky just kill Iron Man's parents. And the funny part about it is that they show you this, and all of a sudden Iron Man starts back to fight Captain, and understandable that he would start back fighting him because he realizes this thing happened. But my problem was that if people had no problem with the way they use the whole, parents dying bit in BVS, they had that problem with it in BVS, but they had no problem with it here in Civil War. I mean, it's almost in the same way. One uses it to get the characters to stop fighting, the other one uses it to get them to start back fighting. And I just saw the main thing when I look at it, Civil War, how people are praising it and how they shit on BVS for almost the same reasons. It just showed like the hypocrisy in the criticism. Because I'm looking back on it now, Civil War, well, I still believe Civil War is a good film. It's not as that good as the critics are making it out to be. I tend to notice a bit more problems in that film looking back. Whereas the BVS, I just didn't really notice that much of the problems. If anything, BVS felt more like understandable with as time goes on, because there's stuff happening, that stuff happening. But I do admit that in BVS they made a lot of mistakes, juggling too much. I do believe that is one of the biggest problems the film had. I still think that it managed to do good what they used it, and I think that the film is okay. In fact, I think it actually holds up better now than it was 2 years ago. In the sense of what they was trying to do. Being a little bit more philosophical in a sense of how they approach the characters, giving you more of a reason as to whether or not if this character is right or if this character is right, or if none of them are right or whatnot. Because I remember looking at people like their team Superman or team Batman and how they do, and if their team Batman or team Superman, what are the reasons why? Because I remember they had that whole beef thing with Team Cap and Team Iron Man. It was like mostly about government stuff, like, oh, Cap is less government intervention, Iron Man is more government intervention or whatever. And it's really funny because that's the most that the people are able to make out in Iron Man versus Captain America and Civil War. And in BVS, they focus on whether or not the philosophical question was, should there be a Superman? And looking back from then to now, I'd say there should be a Superman. Except the downside is that the people nowadays, they do not care for a Superman unless if it's their Superman. And I think that's one of the main things we have to address here. That the film, it focuses on, should there be a Superman that's doing something, that's not perfect. He's a guy that is trying to do the right thing. But since since people have their standard of the characters from the old films, it must be their version, smiling, everything, whatnot, whatever. None of that philosophical stuff. And if that's the way it's going to go, then you might as well just probably dip out and just stick to Marvel. what else is there when DC ends up becoming? What else is there when the film that you're trying to make and you're trying to give them your own identity? And what is the point in continuing to make that when the audience wants it to be more like this type? So there's that. Well, anyways, I'm just summarizing up. BVS in revisiting, talking about certain stuff of the film. From my aspect, the film, it holds up for the most part. To say whether or not if it's ahead of its time, like how a lot of people would say Watchmen was ahead of its time. 300, Man of Steel. Recently Man of Steel is making a come around with the people. I won't say the same thing with Batman vs Superman because of the whole hype stuff and the expectations people have for this was so much more bigger. I think this one was more of a slow burn. Definitely more of a slow burn, especially if you're someone that goes into the Ultimate Edition. And it's also more of a choice of a journey. You're making that choice to accept whether or not if this is something that's doable, right? Rather than just holding it to your standard of this version or that version of the characters. So I think it's more about choice rather than I think it's more about choice than any other aspect when it comes to this one. Anyways, guys, if you enjoy this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. These are just me rambling about the film, but I want to know what you guys think about it. Did you like BPS? Did you see it when it came out? Have your thoughts or opinions on the film changed since then and now, or with the inclusion of the Ultimate Edition? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I guess I will see you guys in the next video.